Hello and welcome to John's Workshop. Welcome back to my regular viewers, and if you're new here and you've come here because of the title, then this workshop is all about machining metal. So as you're about to find out, wood's not my favourite thing. However, in this video we're going to make a Plein box, which is a paint accessory box to fit on a tripod for painting in the open air, which is what plein air effectively means. It's a French term. It means plein air effectively, I think. So this is an early Xmas gift for Mrs. John's Workshop, and so I'm doing something special for that, just to make something rather than go out and buy it. It's a tripod mounted accessory box that fits on a tripod to hold all your paints and things like that, as well as a backing board that sits up at the top of the tripod for actually painting your paintings on. This is wood bothering, and as regular viewers of the channel know, I don't do wood bothering. It's too much like DIY and I don't enjoy doing that. So yeah, it's not my favourite thing. I'm not very successful at it. I don't have any tools and equipment for doing wood or any machinery, so this is going to be a challenge, but that's what it's all about. I've created some drawings, and I'm saying drawings-ish. They're a blend of what I would see as an engineering drawing mixed with some rough sketches, really. So I'll make those available. What I'm not going to do is upload them and all that nonsense. I'm just going to create 3 slides right at the end of the video, stills, and you can snip those and print them or whatever you want to do if you'd like to copy this design or just use it as inspiration for your own design. So with all that being said, let's crack on. Wish me luck. So, as you can see, after many hours of hard work, I have amassed all of my wood bothering paraphernalia, and here it all is. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Measure twice, cut once, or measure once, cut twice. You decide. Let me know in the comments. Oh yes. Okay, I tried to save you from as much of that as possible. Effectively, I've just cut some raw materials to length, to size in the case of the plywood, and to drawing. So we've got a back piece, a front piece, 2 side pieces, and they're on the drawings here. It's just a case of following the dimensions. A base out of ply, a lid out of ply, which are the 2 square pieces underneath, and then there is a support pad which is on one of the other drawings. This is what's going to give the lid some strength at the back as we attach it to the tripod. So that's most of our raw materials cut. the next job now, and this is where I'm going to start struggling in terms of equipment and tools for wood bothering, is I want to put some grooves in the wood. You can see these on the drawing. There's some grooves inlet into the wood, into the sides. I've designed it so that they're all at the same dimension away from the edge of the wood, so it's once I get set up to do this it will be easier. How am I going to set up to do this without the right tools? I don't have a router, well, not one that I can use fixed to a proper router bench and all the rest of it, so I can only really go back to what I know. I don't have any manual woodworking tools to put something like this in and make a decent job of it, so I'm going to break all my own rules, and we're going to set the milling machine up, and we're going to just pretend it's steel or aluminium, and we're going to machine slots in the only way that I know how. I'll join you at the milling machine in a moment. Okay, we have our first piece of aluminium that's a funny colour set up in my milling machine vise. We're just going to touch on the back, wind across to the position of our slot, touch on the top, wind down to full depth, 5mm, it's a 5mm slot, 5mm deep, and then I'm going to cover the bed with as many towels and rags and everything else that I can, just to stop any wood dust getting all over the table and everywhere else, and we'll give it a shot. Okay, while we're making a mess, the two side pieces, I've got a small amount to machine off halfway down, or not even halfway down, off the end to make the joints in the corner of the box. So we're going to use this method. Well, I might as well whilst the mill's set up. It's far easier than me trying to do it with a saw and whatever other things I can find and tools wise. So we'll have a crack with this, should be fine. So we'll just give it a go now. Okay, time to get the kind of the box part, the bit that's going to stick out from the tripod, that's going to be full of all the bits and pieces put together. So you can see the end result of the milling machine. It's done a really decent job of putting the slots in for the lid and a rebate in here, which is going to make the join at the back of the box probably not the right kind of join, but I'm no joiner or wood person, as I keep saying. So we've got some wood glue. We're just now going to start gluing this up, and then we've got some clamps. We're going to clamp this all together with the 3 bits on, and then tomorrow, once that's dry, I'm going to come out and put some panel pins in just to be sure. So we'll start that journey now. Awesome. How's your day going? Okay, we're back. For you, a mere second. For me, a few hours sleep, 9 hours at work, 3 hours of commuting, and let's see what happens when we take these clamps off. Well, it's not fallen apart, that's a good start. So what I'm going to do now is get that marked up on the back for some panel pins to go in and just firm those glued joints up. So you join me a couple of days later when I've just been through a repair procedure, a change of design procedure, if you want to call it that. I forgot to take into account that when you slide the lid into the box, this front edge of the box here, that you can see it, no, you can see it now, this front edge of the box here, the base, I made level with the edges of the framework, and obviously when you slide the front in, there is a gap underneath because I didn't bring the base out far enough to account for the thickness of the front part of the box when it goes on. So what I've done is I've attached a strip of the same plywood to the edge of that, so that when this now shuts, it's all level at the bottom. I've got a bit of sanding to do on the externals of that. I cut it slightly oversized because I want that to be really flush, so I'm going to sand that flush. But before we do that, I'm going to now glue in the actual lid of the box into this. It's just held in there in the joint at the minute, so I'm going to get that glued in, leave that again overnight, and then all of the construction of the woodwork of the box is complete at that point, and we can move on to the tripod mount, which is going to go on here. Okay, we're all glued up, so that all fits nicely together. So the next job now is to focus on the interface with the tripod. There's two parts to that interface. There is I'm calling it a support pad, which is the same thickness as the ply of the lid, 5mm, 5.6mm I think it is. So that gives me 10, nearly 11mm thick of plywood with this pad on, and then I've cut myself a piece of aluminium, which we need to do quite a bit of work to, and that will sit on top of the support pad. It will be screwed through in 4 places, and it will have a thread in the middle that accepts the standard tripod camera thread. So on with this bit, back to familiar territory. Okay, let's cut some metal. So for my regular viewers, milling machine or shaper. Milling machine, shaper. Milling machine, Okay, we've given the whole box a bit of a sand, so it's ready. We're painting the externals, that's what the customer wants. We're not painting the internals. So the box has been prepared on the outside for painting with a nice smooth sand all over. Here is the plate that you've just seen me make, the adapter plate for the tripod mount, and what we've done is laid that onto the support pad with a square so that we know it's square to the box, and I've spotted through the holes with a pencil into the support pad. And what we're going to do now, very very carefully, and that's why I'm going to use this little handheld Parkside Dremel type tool with a 1.5mm diameter drill or 1.3mm diameter drilling. I'm just going to spot the holes through 3/4 of the way through this top plate probably, or maybe just all the way through, and then the screws that we're fitting in are about 3.5mm that are going to go through both and into the bottom, but hopefully not out the other side. So I'm going to use this because it's nice and controlled. That was a good choice. So there's our 4 holes pre-drilled, ready for our screws to attach the adapter plate to once we've painted. We're not going to paint this, by the way, we're just painting the wooden box. So quick look at the box now, all done, all sanded, all nice and smoothed off, and everything fits very nicely. So the next stage of the process before we do any painting is going to be the bits at the back that screw on to the back part of this that are like hooks, and these are to hook around the tripod legs so that the bottom half of the box actually just sits on the tripod legs, because the tripod legs are at 2 angles. They're coming out each way and also coming forward, so compound angle. And we're going to make 2 hooks that match that compound angle ish, and then you can just drop the box onto the tripod legs, and hopefully if we get it right it should sit nice and level and not up or down the way. So that's what we'll be doing next. Okay, excuse the noise, I've got my heater on in here today because it's absolutely freezing. What we're doing here is trying to figure out how we're going to make the 2 hooks that are going to go around the back of the tripod. This is the offending article, this is the Amazon Basics tripod that's going to be used in anger. So what I've done is I've got the box basically clamped up just with some rough blocks of wood, trying to understand what size of spacers I need in each side so that this thing sits level once it's hooked around the legs of the tripod. I'll just bring you in for a closer look. What I would say for anybody who's making something like this to do is do what I'm doing and make a mock-up like this, understand the sizes of spacers you need before you commit to actually making something. So I'll give you a closer look. What you can also see is there's a couple of extra bits that have gone into the box here. There's this rail across the front and a rail halfway down. There's another rail that needs to go in this way, front to back, which I'm still to put in, and these are to make compartments in the bottom for all the various paraphernalia. So excuse the handheld, I'll try not make you dizzy. You can see what I've done there. I've cut some blocks and I've just clamped those in against just a fixed rail at the back. I mean, that's not what it will be like when it's done, but that's just to get an idea of the size that I need to go around this very strange shaped leg. You know, there's nothing, it's very prismatic, the leg, so there's nothing flat or square or parallel on it. So that gives me an idea of the sizes. So from that I'm now going to go ahead and make the hooks to hopefully hold this thing onto the tripod legs nice and flat. Okay, quick update. I've not shown the making of these. It's fairly straightforward, but I've made what you saw me mock up earlier with the clamps. I've just used basically 3 bits of wood, glued, screwed together, made the 2 bits that go on the back onto the tripod. What I've also done, and I don't know whether this shows up or will show up, but inside, yeah, it's going to be difficult to show this on the camera, really difficult, but inside here I've machined these. I was back on the milling machine. I've machined these at an angle, it was about 15 degrees, to match the angle of the legs of the tripod, so when this locates on the tripod we've got full face contact down both of these sides, which just helps this sit in the right place. So for all of the dead tree work we're done. We've got the plate pre-drilled ready to go on, but I'm not putting that on yet because the next job is painting. I'll just bring the tripod over and pop this on and show you it in action. Well, not quite action, but you know what I mean. I'll show you it in position. Okay, let's show you this in position. So we just drop the box onto the tripod and then pull the lid off, and obviously once I've got my plate on here with the quick release for the tripod, that then clips up onto the top, which is where the canvas or the painting board or the paper or whatever you're painting on will go. And then obviously you've got this space down here for paints, brushes, all that kind of thing, and then obviously when you're finished that just goes back together, and there it is. So like I say, that's the woodwork done. I'm happy with how sturdy that is. You know, that's far sturdy. The least sturdy thing in this now is the tripod itself, so you can put plenty of weight on there and nothing's moving, so happy with that. Next job now is painting, which I'm not going to show you because it's just going to be me spraying the outside of the box with some plastic coat paint. So I'll bring you back once that's done and once we've fitted the tripod bits and pieces onto here for the final look. Okay, we're on the final hurdle with this. So customer wants blue paint on the externals of the box only, not on the internals, so we're going to use plastic coat, which is a primer and top coat all in one, waterproof spray paint. And so what I've done is masked up the areas that we don't want it to touch very roughly. You know, this is a painting box, at the end of the day it's going to get paint on it, so this isn't a automotive standard masking job, as you can see. So I'm going to do this next door, in the shed next door, that's got no light in it, so I'm not going to film it. It's just basically going to be me spraying, and I'm sure you don't need to watch that. Everybody knows how a spray can works. So I will bring you back once all that's done and we're doing the final assembly to make sure everything's good. Okay, so the painting is done, or at least as much painting as I'm going to do. So it's time for the unmasking, or shall we call it demasking, because unmasking has got too much horror movie about it, I think. And we don't like horror movies. Not when we're doing things like this anyway. So you can see what I've done there. I've used some cardboard just squashed into the slots to try and mask that part of the box up so the inside stays clean and the outside gets painted. That was the idea behind it. So I masked off an element of the outside. It's bled through a little bit. I'm not too worried about that. The whole idea of masking off the sliding area was there was no point getting paint all over that, because two things. One, it would have made the sliding lid tight into the box with the thickness of the paint, and second, over time of in and out, it's just going to wear off anyway, so there was absolutely no point trying to paint those side bits. So it still all fits together as it should. There's maybe a bit of tweaking to do around some of these edges. I might do a bit of touch up just with a brush, just to bring it level with the edges of the box so you can't see the white bits of wood, but largely that's now fully painted, fully waterproof and protected from the elements. So the next job now is to fit the aluminium plate and the camera mount. So time for the adapter plate to go on. So I've got 4 screws which I hope are the right length and they're not going to go all the way through and out the other side. We'll leave them loose for now until we get a coupling. I think what we'll do actually is we'll sit them down flat on the workbench so I can put a bit more pressure on. This is where I find out I screw the lid to the workbench, because that'll be handy. Okay, that's us screwed in. Nothing come through, that's good. And then final job is the actual quick release part of the tripod. Is this handed? I don't know. Don't think it is. We can always reposition it. So this is a 1/4 20 UNC thread, which is standard for camera mounts, tripod mounts. Make sure that's square with the rest of the thing. And that's it. So what I'm going to do now is just get my aerosol can of paint. I'm just going to squirt some into a little plastic pot or something and just get a tiny little brush and just go and touch up around these edges where I've masked, just to make sure it looks nice and complete. But largely that's the job done. So next time you see this, it will be on the tripod and we'll be testing it. How exciting! So here's the finished article. I've cut an extra piece of wood which is for mixing paint on. That's had 3 or 4 coats of varnish, so hopefully paints will come back off, but if not we can just sand that, revarnish it at some point. And that fits on top of all of the compartments in the box which holds all the stuff in. And what you'll see is I've made this all around a standard A3 pad, so you can put your A3 size or even A4 if you want paper inside. And then when you're painting, take this out and that can sit on the side like that for mixing your paints on.